We're here today to discuss one of the organizations featured in our new book called How to Heal Our Divides. Catherine Meeks, PhD, is Executive Director of Absalom Jones Center for Racial Healing. Prior to the center's opening, she chaired its precursor, Beloved Community, Commission for Dismantling Racism for the Episcopal Diocese of Atlanta. A sought-after teacher and workshop leader, Catherine brings 4 decades of experience to the work of transforming the dismantling racism work in Atlanta. Catherine is a retired Clara Center Acree Distinguished Professor of Sociocultural Studies from Wesleyan College and founding executive director of the Lane Center for Community Engagement and Service. She's the author of 6 books and is the editor of the best-selling book, Living into God's Dream, Dismantling Racism in America. She holds a master's degree in social work from Clark Atlanta University and a PhD from Emory University. So Catherine, it's such a pleasure to have you here with us today. Thank you for your work.
Thank you. It's good to be here. And it's always good to talk about the work, which means so much to me.
So I've kind of talked about your background a little bit, but could you give folks an even deeper flavor of that?
Well, of course, I've been doing this work since I was a kid in college, and I'll be 75 I'm pretty soon. And so for over 50 years, I've been doing this work. I grew up in Arkansas. My father was an illiterate sharecropper, and my mother was a school teacher who graduated from college the same year I graduated from high school. And my mother went to college all of my early life. I watched her go from one place to another to get a class here and a class there because there were no colleges near us, and it was very difficult for an African-American woman to go to get her degree without having to just leave and go to another city. And she couldn't do that because she had to work, and then she had 4 kids. So I used to watch my mom work in the field in the mornings and then put us in the car and drive somewhere to take classes in the evening. And I learned a whole lot about perseverance and tenacity and the importance of being focused and really listening to your heart and go in that direction. And it's a lot of that observation more than anything, because Mama didn't talk about it much. She just got up every day and did all the stuff she needed to do. And I'm sort of that kind of person too, who just gets up and goes forward to the work. Growing up on a farm, my father loved the outdoors and the land. Even though he didn't own any of it, he loved it, and he taught me to appreciate nature. And I think that the combination of my mother and my father helped to give me the tools that I have now to help me do this work, which is quite tedious at times, but requires a lot of perseverance and patience and staying focused. And I learned that from them growing up in Arkansas as a poor Black girl with a sense of a call to do something in the world to assure my own liberation and the liberation of other people.
Wow, that's neat to hear your story.
Yeah.
Could you tell us just an overview of the Center for Racial Healing?
Well, the center is 3 years old. And it morphed out of the Commission for Dismantling Racism, which I chaired for 8 years. And when I took on the chairing of that commission, it was called the Anti-Racism Commission, and offered a class called the Anti-Racism class that everybody in our diocese who wanted to be a leader, ordained person or a vestry member or a search committee member, was mandated to take if they wanted to do those jobs. Well, needless to say, people really did everything they could to avoid the class. They hated it. It just had a bad reputation too much of the time. And it worried me a lot because I was a professor of African American studies, and I knew that the work of liberation, of dismantling racism, needed to be done with excellence and not to have people trying to hide out to avoid it. And so it was very disturbing to me, that bad attitude toward the work in our diocese. And when the opportunity came for me to take over the chairing of it, I was hesitant, but I knew I needed to do it. And as soon as I got involved, we reimagined the training and made it Eucharist centered and reimagined the work and put it under the umbrella of spiritual formation and created a completely different narrative around it that resulted in it just mushrooming. And people quit trying to hide out. Also, we changed our name from Anti-Racism Commission to Commission for Dismantling Racism, Beloved Community, Commission for Dismantling Racism, which really just shifted the energy from the negativity to something a bit more positive. And as a result of that, the work just mushroomed in our diocese, but it also started to gain a reputation around the church. And after a while, we had people coming from other dioceses to talk to us about what are we doing and how are we doing this and how could we help them. And so finally, we just outgrew ourselves as a commission. And Bishop Wright had said that to me one day. And I said, well, of course, I've been thinking that myself. And I think we should have a center. And so we began to pursue that idea with Bishop Michael Curry, who was quite taken by the notion and was willing to become a partner with us. So the Center for Racial Healing was born 3 years ago, and the commission was decommissioned, and we no longer have a commission in this diocese. We just have the center that picked up the training work, but then expanded it significantly. And so we are a collaborative partnership between the Episcopal Diocese of Atlanta and the presiding bishop. However, we're getting ready to move into enlarging that notion to be a partnership with General Convention rather than just the presiding bishop, because it's important for the security of and longevity of the center that it not be connected to just the presiding bishop, because then when that person changes, then you've got to lobby that person to see if they want to keep doing this. If it's a part of the General Convention, that could come up, but it won't come up as quickly. And so we are mandated to offer our work to the entire Episcopal Church. And we have managed in 3 years to pretty much engage 60 of the 99 dioceses in the communion, which I'm very proud of. We have gone from just being this little local group in our diocese to now actually being an international center. We've worked regionally with the province in Province 4. We've worked nationally with dioceses outside of our province and also internationally with Province 9. And so I'm very, very grateful for the support that the center has gotten and the reception that it has gotten. But the primary reason for that is that we have shifted the lens in the right direction. The direction that the work needed to be done in is about mobilization of the church and getting people within parishes to start seeing this work as their responsibility and taking it on and doing their own work and not waiting for somebody to come from a commission or a center with a prescription. But our job as a center, I think, is to be a support, to be a catalyst, to be an affirmer. And yes, we do offer classes and some things, but our biggest emphasis is upon mobilizing yourself, mobilizing the parish, so that parishes are looking at their year-long program and saying, what are we going to be doing about racial healing and dismantling racism? And we're beginning to see that happen. The center is beginning to see that happening around the country. And it's very rewarding to see people take this work up on their own and not just sit and wait for somebody to come and offer something in their city or, to invite them to think about this. They're thinking about it themselves. They're realizing the need for them to be actively involved and not passively waiting for somebody to come and say, have you thought about doing a book study or film series? People are doing those things. They're doing pilgrimages. They're looking for more and more resources. So that's what the center is about. We say we are bold. We are a brave space where the truth can be told. And we pride ourselves on being compassionate truth tellers and engaging people in that way and encouraging people to join us in that process.
Well, that's a wonderful set of accomplishments, and I'm so glad to hear about the growth that's taken place.
Mhm.
Are your programs open to people or churches outside of the Episcopal Church?
Yes, we will never turn anybody away who shows up in one of our programs or shows interest in what we're doing. But our primary constituency is the Episcopal Church. We have 3 million people in the Episcopal Church. So I say that if we change our church and get our church to be really committed to doing this work as it needs to be done, that would be a wonderful achievement. But anybody who looks at what we're doing and is interested in it is welcome. I mean, like I said, we would never turn anybody away. We just don't go lobbying for other people. You know, when we first got started, people were asking us, talking about being ecumenical. You have to be careful with that because you end up using ecumenacy as a way to water down what you're doing. You end up trying to be everything to everybody, and then you end up not being anything to anybody. Also, I felt like the Episcopal Church had its own woundedness to work on, and that within our family structure as Episcopalians, we needed to take that seriously and not have to ask other people to come bring their woundedness because we got enough to go around. And so I've been pretty adamant about not losing focus. Now we have worked with Baha'i people, Presbyterians, Lutherans, Methodists, Jewish people occasionally, and but they have come to us and said, you know, can you can you do this or will you help us with this? And we always will say yes. But I'm not trying to go have a center that's for everybody because that's, you know, I mean, it's it's okay, it would be wonderful, but we don't have that capacity, and it would cause us to lose our focus. And I think part of the reason why we've been so successful is that we have stayed so clearly focused on what it is we're trying to do, and while welcoming people who want to be a part of us without trying to make them partners or have them come and then then we got to reshape ourselves some, because if you're going to partner with somebody, you got to be, it's give and take. And in this case, we need to be plotting our own course toward healing for the Episcopal Church.
I think in any endeavor, focus, particularly in the early stages, is really valuable.
Mm-hmm.
And so I can totally see that, but I'm also really glad that, the programs are open to others, because I think that you've done such a wonderful thing that, it's got to be of value to many different denominations and non-denominations.
Yes, yes. And we have been so grateful to have other people learn about us and want to be interested and come to be with us and some of our, particularly in our Dismantling Racism classes and some of our now the webinars and things that we're doing. And we welcome that and we're grateful for it. But we are still always clear that this is our family's problem and we're sitting around our dinner table and we don't need the neighbors to be here. We in order for us to do our work, we need to do our work ourselves and be really sincere and focused about that. And it's been a good thing. It's turned out to be a good thing.
So can you tell us what your training programs looked like before the pandemic and kind of what they look like now? I'm sure you've had to make major changes.
Well, I was so worried when the governor put the notice out that before the governor, the bishop, when the bishop's office closed, and we're part of the bishop's office. And so we had to close and go home. The school, the university, we're located across the street from the Clark Atlanta University system, and they closed down the school, and then the bishop closed down the bishop's office. So we were going to come home to work. And I was really worried about how in the world are we going to do our work, because we do our Dismantling Racism classes in person. And all of our work, of course, was done in person. Well, I got with my team of facilitators for Dismantling Racism classes, and we spent a half a day kind of looking at how we would format the work for a virtual platform and how we would get this done and practicing, and got a lovely young woman to help with facilitating the technical side. And we spent a bit of time kind of reshaping ourselves. And then we started offering our Dismantling Racism classes virtually, and we're doing 25 of them this year. And each right now, all the classes are full. They keep filling up all the time. And then we started doing webinars to deal with some of the other issues that we wanted to deal with. And we had such a response. I mean, you have 1,000 people register for, I did a conversation with Bishop Michael Curry, and we had 1,000 people register for it. If we had been doing that conversation on site, we would have been lucky to have 100 people. And so we pretty much doubled our database last year because of the virtual platform. We raised more money than we have ever raised in a year, because as people participated in our webinars, we don't charge for any of that, and we just ask for donations, and people were very generous. I mean, some people gave us $1,000 donation, which was amazing to me. And it just kind of blew my mind. It also, I mean, it's one of those paradoxical things where I'm really grateful and happy about how well we did, but it was in the midst of such sadness and sorrow and loss and reasons to grieve. But it's just the way life is. I mean, there's always these paradoxes. So here's the thing to celebrate, and over here's the thing to grieve about. And you just kind of have to hold them both and go forward. And I'm very, very grateful that the center ended up in such a good place at the end of the year. And it's led me to the conclusion that we will live stream all of our work in the future, because we have an audience now, an international audience. And we've had people from Canada, from the UK, from West Africa, from Latin America in our programs. And so now that we've had that kind of reach, we don't want to cut it off by going back to having 30 people in the room with us. If we have 30 people in the room and 300 online, then that's great. And so we're buying equipment so that we can do live streaming whenever we're back in the when we're back to doing more center focused programming. We'll be able to share it with that audience out there that is interested in what we're doing.
That's so wonderful to hear, and congratulations on being able to make the migration like that. It's just exciting, and so glad that it went so well. So glad that it's been so well received.
It's been amazing to me. And every now and again, I get these emails from people saying, oh, we're just so grateful for the programming that you're doing. And we've just redid our website because we know how important it is to be inclusive in this work. And so we're working really hard to make sure that we have equity in terms of the major ethnic groups in our country that have been disenfranchised. So we put up a virtual resource library on our website for Native people, for Latinx people, for Asian Americans and African Americans. And we're building a resource base for each one of those groups and trying to be equitable in our presentations and programming, because all of these groups have experienced oppression in our country and are mistreated and are disenfranchised and marginalized. And I do not want our center to replicate the system by ignoring them and marginalizing them again. And I have made it clear to everybody that while we will do our best to not do that, of course we'll fall short some, because I know more about African Americans than I do Asian Americans, but that doesn't mean that I can't find the resources and find the people who do know and get them to bring those resources to the center. So I think our website is the only website in the country that has that focus of a kind of particularly in the religious community that has a focus that's trying to look at all those groups and trying to say, look, we can't play oppression Olympics here with this group is the winner because their oppression was worse than those folks over there. Because if people are oppressed, they are oppressed, and it's indefensible for us as a community of faith not to be speaking about everybody. You don't get to pick and choose, really. You know, if you want to have integrity, you've got to be against oppression, period, wherever it shows up. So I'm very, very pleased with a young woman who designed our website, and would really encourage people to visit it, because we want it to be like an excursion where you can come and spend time there and learn things and find resources that can help you in whatever you're doing, you're just living, or if you happen to be a person who's a practitioner of racial healing work.
Well, from our How to Heal Our Divides website, we will have links to the Center for Racial Healing and their website and all the good work that they do. I mentioned earlier on the book that you had co-edited, Living into God's Dream, Dismantling Racism in America. Can you talk a little bit about that book as well as the new book that has come out?
Yes, thank you. Living into God's Dream, Dismantling Racism in America is a collection of chapters by 5 other people and myself. And I wanted to create a book that would help to provide a basis for conversation around dismantling racism. So to have these diverse voices in the book has really been helpful. And it's been widely used by people as they have done book studies and discussion groups, because it's really served that purpose that I was hoping for, that it would make it possible for people to have conversations and not just have one voice in the room. You know, you have I wrote 2 of the chapters, so it's got 7 chapters, and here we are with a text that can be talked about and used, and people are coming at this from a little bit different perspective, even though all of the folks are grounded in faith, of course. There's let's see, some of them are Episcopalian, some of them are not, but it doesn't matter. I mean, we had a kind of common understanding of reality that is a thread that goes through the book. And the basic premise being that it is God's dream for us to live without these structures that we have put into place to divide ourselves, and that our work is to find a way to diminish those things. I mean, if you know, to keep chipping away at it and making it impossible for that division to thrive, at least. I mean, if we can't get rid of it, let's at least make it limp along instead of being such a powerful force among us. So I'm very pleased with the results that have come from the book. And then I co-authored a book on Ida B. Wells with Reverend Nib Stroop, who's a retired Presbyterian pastor, a white man who grew up in Helena, Arkansas, only about 30 miles from where I grew up in Moro, Arkansas. But we did not know each other. We met each other here in Atlanta. And discovered that Nibs is a fierce fighter for liberation. And we discovered each other and realized how much we both loved Ida B. Wells and wanted to write about her. So we ended up writing this book together, Ida B. Wells, Passionate for Justice, Prophet for Our Time. And I love, she was the person who was just such a powerful voice against lynching, and also for the rights of Black people and women. And she is just a phenomenal human being who's also making it clear that she's just a human being who's trying to be faithful to the call to work for justice. So I'm very pleased about both of those books and have been glad to see them be used by people as they work on trying to dismantle racism.
Well, Catherine, really am glad that you're part of this whole program to spread the word about organizations that are actually healing divides and taking, all of this very pragmatically.
Mm-hmm.
So I would really like to have you tell folks how they can get involved, regardless of who they are or where they're, located or what their role might be.
Well, the first thing I always want to say to people is that you should think about what you can do in the sphere that belongs to you. Where are you and what's going on in your locale? What's going on in your house? What's going on in your neighborhood? What's going on inside of you? That's the starting place, And if we at the Center for Racial Healing can be helpful to you in exploring that and kind of coming to grips with, well, what do I need to do where I am? I'm happy to do that. So, our website is centerforracialhealing.org. That's really easy to remember. You are welcome to visit there. How to get in touch with us is there, the email address. If you have questions or if you want to talk about, ideas, we're open to any and all of that. But always thinking that the most important work you will ever do, and probably the best work you'll ever do, is the work you do in the sphere that you live in. I mean, you work with the realities that face you every day, because it's easy to send, you can send us donations. I mean, we always need money, but you can send us money and then think, oh, I'm done with that. But you're not. We would love to have your donation. Don't get me wrong. But the bigger gift that you can give to us is to take a stand where you are, to be vigilant about dismantling racism in the space that you inhabit and in the community that you happen to live in. Because this is how ultimately we're going to make this country a different place, with everybody taking this on as their personal work in the place where they are. And just think about that. If thousands and thousands of people would do that, think about how much energy would be mobilized toward changing the structures and changing the situation that we find ourselves in. So I'm just really, really clear about the necessity for individual intentional commitment to the work in whatever way you can do it. I mean, you don't have to be Dr. King or John Lewis. You just have to be yourself. You just have to wake up and be conscious and do what's in front of you. We get so caught up in trying to do what's out there that belongs to somebody else, and we completely skip over all of the 5 things in front of us that really needed to be done. And had we done those 5 things, we might have been given 5 more. And eventually we might get way out there somewhere, but we'll get there with on a foundation that really makes more sense than just waking up and trying to go off to, somewhere to do stuff that really wasn't yours to do in the first place.
Amen.
Yeah.
I totally agree that, this is the type of effort that has to take place all over, and,
Right.
Each individual, each, area, and it's going to take time, and it's going to take an enormous grassroots effort, but we don't have any choice.
Right. That's right. That's right. And we owe it to the people who already gave their lives to make the world a better place. We owe it to the people who were willing to be courageous, who were willing to lay their lives down for liberation and freedom for everybody. We owe them our commitment, because we live in these free spaces, whatever free spaces we have, because people were willing to struggle for it. And I have the least thing I can do to say thank you is to be faithful to the legacy.
Well, Catherine, thank you again for spending some time with us to, go through your programs, and thank you for being part of the How to Heal Our Divides program. And thank you so much for the decades worth of wonderful work that you've done.
Well, you're so welcome, and thank you for including me in the center. I'm delighted, and I'm really delighted that you're doing this project, because I think this country is in dire need of new narratives and new ways to think about how we're going to live together. And Dr. King said we were either going to learn to live together as sisters and brothers or perish as fools. And we seem to be working hard on the fools part. So I'm really, really grateful for this project that can be another voice for saying, wait a minute, you don't have to you don't have to go down that road. There are people going down better roads, and you might want to consider it. So thank you too.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Catherine.
All right.